Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Building. I'm Brenna C. Horn-Cronin, Executive General Manager of School Music License, and I'm joined today by my colleague and our producer of this series, Anneliese Land. Anneliese, it's good to be with you today.
It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Today, schools can reach audiences that would have been unimaginable just a couple of decades ago. That opportunity is exciting, but it also comes with new questions around responsible online sharing. We believe schools should not have to navigate those questions alone. I am incredibly excited about the thought leaders that we have joining us for this series, and I know they understand the importance of our mission here. Together, we'll explore the central question that sits at the heart of Beyond the Building. How do we embrace online sharing confidently and responsibly? Annalise, can you share with our viewers and listeners more about your background as well as a bit about the series and what we're hoping to achieve here?
Absolutely, sure. So before joining School Music License, I spent more than a decade teaching music in K to 12 schools and also preparing future music educators at the university level. What has become clear to me and so many of us over the last few years is that online sharing became part of our K to 12 school culture before we had a chance to fully consider what that shift meant. I think, especially during the pandemic, we all saw schools embrace online sharing to keep their communities connected. And since then, online sharing has shifted from sort of a hazy opportunity to a day to day realistic expectation. But as technology evolved almost overnight, many educators and administrators found themselves navigating unfamiliar copyright and licensing questions, often alone. Beyond the Building grew from that reality, a desire to bring educators, creators, and industry leaders together for thoughtful conversations about how school sharing has evolved, why it matters, and how we move forward with greater clarity and confidence. So, Brenna, before we meet our guests later in the series, I thought I'd turn the tables and ask you a few questions to help set the stage for the conversations ahead.
Sure, let's do it.
So, knowing a bit about your background as the executive general manager of School Music License, and then your role prior to this as general manager of one license, I'm curious, why do you think School Music License is uniquely positioned to meet this moment?
Our relationships in the music industry make all of the difference. This service is the cumulative effort of decades of relationship building with music education publishers, music labels, performing rights organizations, and of course, our fantastic legal team. The need for these permissions really escalated to a fever pitch during the pandemic, which you had mentioned also. We sought to meet the moment with a solid solution grounded in those relationships. We had thousands of publishers actually that signed on in the first few days because they too were looking for a solution to streamline permissions. Everyone wanted it to be easier. Schools wanted it to be easier. Publishers needed it to be easier, frankly, and we were willing to put in the work to make it happen.
So, now that we're launched and School Music License is serving schools across the country, what kinds of school events are most commonly streamed or posted now?
I think the obvious ones that come to mind for all of us are band, choir, and orchestra concerts, marching band halftime shows, POMS performances, gymnastics meets, cheer competitions, and events like talent or variety shows. You'll notice in those examples a mix of live student performances and then events that use commercial tracks, otherwise known as master recordings. I also think about events that could be broadcasted to local community centers or retirement communities. We also, believe it or not, receive a lot of requests to stream light shows at football and basketball games. There really is almost no limit to the events that we can cover.
The expectations around sharing all of these school performances and events have changed dramatically in recent years, as I mentioned. Do you think that along with that shift, educators, administrators have received the guidance or support that they need to navigate that shift?
Yeah, I don't think that educators have lacked the desire to do this well. In many cases, the technology and the expectations around online sharing simply evolved faster than the guidance available to support them. On a personal note, if you'll indulge me, I'll say, as a proud graduate of Northwestern University, I'm incredibly grateful that my graduate studies included arts and entertainment law and copyright ethics. That experience gave me not only an appreciation for copyright itself, but for the artists, composers, and publishers whose livelihoods depend on it. But that kind of training isn't common in educator preparation programs. And I don't think most educators should even be expected to become copyright experts in order to celebrate their students online. There is so much that is expected of educators. And I think this is one thing that we can take off of their plate, frankly. In short, our reputation for being focused on educating our license holders instead of compliance for the sake of compliance allows folks to trust that we can be the experts in copyright best practices and you can be the experts of your programs.
When schools and districts hear about our service for the first time, many of them come to us with questions around sharing as a K-12 entity, like why would sharing our students' accomplishments be restricted, or what happens if this video is flagged, muted, or receives a takedown notice? I think all of those questions are not signs that educators are doing something wrong. I think they're signs that they have the intention of doing everything right. And they're also navigating a rapidly changing landscape with incomplete information and evolving expectations. And I think that's where we can come in and help with that.
Yeah, Annalise, I completely agree. And that's why education has become such an important part of our mission at School Music License. We care deeply about meeting schools where they are and helping them navigate these questions with confidence. In many ways, we see ourselves as trusted guides and good stewards on behalf of both educators and member publishers, helping schools understand what they need, what they don't need, or how to share responsibly without creating unnecessary barriers or complexity.
Where do you think the biggest points of confusion are for schools when it comes to sharing performances and events online?
Yeah, one of the biggest points of confusion, I think, is that the rights involved in performing music aren't the same as the rights that are involved in sharing that performance online. So, for example, many educators are familiar with purchasing sheet music or securing the rights necessary to arrange a marching band show. It's very reasonable to assume that those permissions would naturally extend to streaming or to posting that performance online. But just purchasing sheet music or securing the arrangement rights does not grant you permission to post your performance online. The same is true for a Palms coach, let's say, who legally obtains a master recording of their song their team is going to dance to. Just because it was purchased legally from iTunes does not mean that you then have the right to post that video with the track in it online. So, in reality, and we're actually going to get into this in a future episode, there are bundles of rights that often operate separately, and schools have largely been asked to navigate those distinctions on their own. So, that's why we have worked so hard to make this process straightforward, easy, and accessible. Historically, a school might have needed to contact, let's say, multiple publishers individually and potentially receive different answers, timelines, and fee structures for every request, which makes sense. They're all different publishing houses, right? So let's say you're performing five different pieces for a choir concert. Well, that might be four or five different publishing houses that you're reaching out to. It's too much, frankly, to manage when there's now one place that music educators can go to secure those rights for that choir concert. What we're seeing now, too, I think, is a shared desire from both schools and the music industry to make responsible sharing easier, clearer, and more achievable than it ever has been before.
What happens when schools don't share these moments online?
The simple answer is that people miss out in the moment and then they miss out long term. So, a parent traveling for work, a parent at home with a sick kid, a grandparent who winters in a different state. Those are all reasons that many of us experience ourselves for someone missing an event. We can't possibly be all places all the time as much as we might want to be. But what about folks who just want to watch it again or have a record of their child's early dance or gymnastics experience? Really, school culture has a vibrancy to it. And no matter how programs want to share their events, be it social media, on their school website, via private links because of privacy policies, school music license can help all of that happen legally.
What do you see as the long-term benefits of posting these performances and student events online?
Yeah, I think one of the greatest long term benefits is the creation of a living historical record of a school culture and a living historical record of student achievement. For previous generations, many of those moments disappeared as soon as the event was over. I feel a little nostalgic when I when I talk about this topic. The idea that today's students may be able to revisit performances, celebrations, and milestones decades from now feels really meaningful to me. So it's not just about the folks who are in the auditorium, the evening that it's happening, or maybe the folks who are watching a couple of days or a week later. But it really truly allows folks to be able to watch things years and years and years and decades into the future, which is pretty cool.
Our final question, and we're asking everybody in this series, all of our guests, what advice would you give K to 12 schools that want to embrace online sharing while doing so confidently and responsibly?
I would invite folks to stay curious and to join us for this series. We have some fantastic guests joining us in the next couple of weeks, and a lot of these conversations really feel like you're sitting down and sharing a meal together. We promise that this series will be actionable, informative, and ultimately, my hope at least, is that it's really validating for any frustrations that you've experienced around copyright and music licensing and how all of this can be navigated much more easily.